And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal, Radio McGill, 91.7 on FM cable, and on the internet through www.ckut.ca. We welcome you to our weekly half hour of news and information about radio in Montreal and elsewhere around the world on shortwave. Welcome back to Bill.
Hi, everybody.
And thanks to Alan Roberts for filling in last week, and some nice reaction to the talk last week about FM in particular.
Yeah, it was nice to have Alan on. We hope we can get him back more often.
Yep, an interesting subject that seemed to hit home with a few people out there who, I guess there's some more strange people out there who like to turn their radio dials, we found out, and we're having some difficulty trying to hear some of the FM stations that we've been talking about. One thing we were discussing after the show, and maybe just to add it on to last week's program, we did receive one call from a listener asking us about a switch or a button that we had mentioned to look for on your FM tuner, something called an AFC switch or an AFC button. What we began to realize after the show is that probably a lot of today's newer equipment probably doesn't have one of these switches or buttons on it. As a matter of fact, we were even speculating of the possibility of today's newer units having continuous on AFC, something that you may not be able to sort of take off and will make things extremely difficult for you to hear any weaker stations that might be between some of the stronger ones. So if you've been spending the week flipping your radio upside down and inside out trying to find out what this button or switch is, it's quite possible that you may not have this thing on the receiver. We're going to try and check out a little bit more to see if that sort of theory of ours might be possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the sets just have it built in.
Yeah, I think the desire is to just get what needs to be done out of these units, and that's to be able to hear your local stations, so that they're not drifting in and out as they might tend to. So yeah, it's a good possibility that those switches might not exist any longer on some of the units, and certainly the smaller portables and things like that, you're probably not going to find it. So go spend your time listening to radio instead of looking for that switch, because you're probably not going to find it. But anyways, we hope it was helpful to you in trying to help out some of your FM reception out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to other things going on radio-wise this week in the city here.
Lots of people still away.
Oh, summer continues. Yeah.
Summer continues. People come, people go. CJD has been really, really kind of hit by all this. They finally got Rick Peterson back after he'd been gone for a couple of weeks, but then he's going to be gone next week. So he barely had time to sit down in his chair before he's off again. Trudy and Kevin are off on their 1 to 4 chat show slot. And before, they've usually had Derek Conlon and Kim Fraser in, replacing them. But now Kim Fraser is replacing Andrew Carter in the 4 to 7 p.m. World Today slot. So they had what I kind of think of as a bizarre choice of Ernie Butler, the guy from the comedy show, and Laurie McDonald, half of the Olga and Laurie team, doing the Trudy and Kevin slot, which personally I found quite strange. And then Peter Anthony Holder is into reruns too, so that's another thing. They don't replace him when he's gone. He's just do reruns.
Yeah, if you're looking actually for an article, some background news on Peter Holder, there's a piece in this week's Chronicle newspaper. They're apparently doing a series of features on Montreal radio and television personalities, and they did this past week's edition on Peter Holder.
Okay.
It mentions that he's also doing a television program on sort of Caribbean items and things like that,
okay.
I believe it was. I haven't seen the article myself yet. My brother called me actually and told me he had a copy of it for me. So,
okay.
So you might want to check that out if you get the Chronicle over the week from the West Island. And they're going to be doing, I think, Herb Luft from CFCF News is the next featured personality. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And one thing, CJD is doing an Italian week starting tomorrow.
Yeah, there's big another festival in Montreal.
Festival.
Yes, the Italian, and they're actually thinking that the some of the areas in the city just may not be ready for this. For the turnout that they're expecting, they think it might just get over swamped with people participating in this one. So I guess Mariana Simeone must be beside herself right now.
Probably.
All right. What else is going on? I'm talking about the vacation period. There was a lot of talk in radio in Montreal, actually, when Mitch Melnick and Ted Blackman were off. And they returned, and they were actually commenting on they got a lot of emails, they said, and faxes and stuff at the station complaining about going to the morning show in Toronto. Turns out that they went to that show, and Paul Romanek, one of the two people that host that show, he was away on vacation. So they had some fill-in for him going on. And then one of the days was the civic holiday in the rest of Canada.
Yeah, last Monday.
And they went with this sporting news radio thing that they fill in with as if it was a weekend or something. And so we got that in Montreal as well. So people were really, really upset with what was going on. And Melnick commented on this, and I actually sent him a note commenting about all the postings that we had in radio in Montreal about it as well. He did mention on air this week that this sort of thing would not happen again, and that the Montreal listeners would not be left stranded, stuck with the Toronto morning show should they disappear for vacation or whatever. So, whether we had some impact with that too remains to be seen.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things here on the whole team network which are changing. William Houston, who does a column in the sports section of the Globe and Mail, particularly on the sports media, radio and television, is a particularly interesting guy to talk to follow for this sort of thing. There was a piece last Saturday, August 3rd, which said that, quoting here, next month, Chum will relaunch its team network of all sports radio stations in the hope of grabbing reasonable market share in Toronto and other regions across the country. And there was even more, apparently, in his column yesterday.
Yeah, much more detailed information on this, and this is from Saturday, August the 10th. Chum Radio's team network of all sports stations is set to relaunch on August the 19th, according to broadcasting sources. The team's new strategy will be to stress localized programming and push heavily with hockey, insiders say. The national concept, which hasn't worked, will be junked and replaced with an emphasis on talk about the local team. The new format is expected to include a telephone segment at each station in the morning from 9 to noon. Just 2 days ago, the Team 1200 in Ottawa announced that it is moving to the phone-in show Sports Call on Monday and dropping the nationally distributed Gene Velitis show. Insiders are wondering whether Chum's Velitis show, considered weak by many, will be discontinued. Another question is the status of the national afternoon drive-home show with host Jim Van Horn. He's locked into a long-term contract and isn't going anywhere, but the decision on a new co-host has been the subject of speculation. Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun has been mentioned as a possibility, but some believe the team, in keeping with its planned emphasis on hockey, will opt for a media personality in that sport. The name of Mike Brophy of the Hockey News has surfaced, and even TSN's hockey commentator reporter Bob McKenzie, if he could find time outside his work on TSN. He also works on tsn.ca, the Toronto Maple Leafs telecast, and TSN hockey reports. It's been speculated that the team would relaunch in September, but its chief competition, the Fan 590 in Toronto, is planning an extravaganza on September the 4th to celebrate its 10th anniversary as an all-sports station. Chum apparently feels the best strategy is to promote its new format before the Fan makes its splash. The team has been on the air since May of 2001 in major Canadian markets, but has fared poorly, particularly in Toronto, where the Fan outdraws Team 1050 5-1. It's speculated that Chum will give the team another year to 18 months and then pull the plug if the numbers don't start to move. Calls to team executive Bill Bodnarchuk were not returned. Melnick on Team 990 has certainly been hinting that there are big changes in the works. So
this might be part of the reason we're not going to get the Toronto local morning show again for holiday breaks.
Yeah, he mentioned a few weeks ago that he had been called down to Toronto for some kind of big meeting that was going on down there as well. So I'm assuming this is all tied in together. So we will probably be seeing something major going on at Team 990 here in Montreal. I don't know who they'd look at slotting in from 9 to noon. It would be interesting to see whose name might pop up there.
Yeah.
They've got a number of people that they keep tapping into. Mitch Garber's been showing up on a few times here and there. We'll have to wait and see, but it looks like something is in the works and something on a more local basis.
One has to wonder, though, we mentioned a few weeks ago that the Peterborough station that was part of this had gone over to another format.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to wonder if some of maybe the smaller market ones like Kingston or Kitchener-Waterloo will kind of end up abandoning the team format.
Yeah, if they don't have a big enough local sports sort of pool to draw from, covering events locally sports-wise, maybe, it just might not warrant an all-sports station in a city of some of the smaller cities that are on the network. But we'll see. Certainly the Velitis show is pretty lame, so it wouldn't surprise me at all that disappears. So we'll see. Some moves afoot very shortly, maybe getting the jump before ratings period start by the looks of it.
Well, it's interesting. They must have moved. It sounds like they may have moved it up possibly because in the piece from August 3rd, William Houston was saying that he heard it was going to happen next month, whereas yesterday he was saying that it's going to happen a week from tomorrow.
Well, obviously with the fan announcing this celebration of theirs, they might want to get a bit of a head start on them. So,
but Chum Limited television arm dropped a whole bunch of people, 50-some people earlier this week.
And speculation there that some of that may be the costs that they're incurring for the team network on radio.
Because they own City TV in Toronto and dropped a whole bunch of people from that, including one of the syndicated shows that comes off of there.
Yeah, it's sort of all coming together as far as Chum is concerned, having to revamp a lot of different things. Anyways, back to Montreal for a little bit. Just want to mention that we heard for the first time, some original programming out of the new 1610 station this week. Turned out to be on Friday evening. Tuned by, and they had been in the tape loop again or not tape loop really, but taped IDs and the announcements of test transmissions. But that was broken into on Friday evening. Not sure exactly what time it took place. But they had an open line talk show going with a male and female host. I never did quite catch the names. I was thinking that it may have been the station owner, Jean-Ernest Pierre, but I never really did confirm that. But they were taking calls in from listeners, and obviously it seemed that the station has done some publicity, particularly in the Haitian community, as there were a lot of callers calling in, and it was quite interesting to listen to. A little difficult to understand at times. I was having some difficulty with the Haitian French accent at times. Interestingly enough, though, they have got their own 790 telephone number.
Already?
Phone in, 790-2726, which relates to CPAM, actually.
Oh, okay.
So 790-2726 is the phone-in studio line for CJWI, which they did not, at least in the time I was listening, they did not mention once. They continue to confuse people by using CPAM, CPAM. And no, that is not the call letters. Anybody out there who keeps thinking that that's the call letters, it is not, unless they are in Bolivia.
Exactly, because call letters beginning with CP are through ITU registrations going to Bolivia.
That's right. So it is CJWI. And you will hear that mentioned only once in the taped announcement that's in the test broadcasts. Right at the very beginning, some people, it just kind of slides right by them and they miss it. So anyways, they are back to music, though, again this morning with the taped announcements.
Yeah, I've tuned past them a few times in the wee hours over the past few days, and it's always been the continuous music.
They did mention to one caller on Friday evening about the continuous technical problems that they've been having.
Okay.
So obviously they haven't got all the bugs ironed out yet. So I would think they're not far away, though, from going to regular programming. So we'll have to sort of keep checking that out on 1610 and see where we're going with that.
Okay. We're talking about stations changing, reworking their formats and doing some changes. CKSA, the 730 station here in Montreal, is going to be doing that to a certain extent. We mentioned a couple months ago now that they were sort of looking to go a little more news-oriented and a little less sports. And they're doing part of this, particularly in their morning show. They're changing around a few things. They're putting a new 30-minute news bulletin in around 8 o'clock. With various people in it. And they've booked the television cook Daniel Pinard to come on and do a daily sort of chronicle of food-oriented stuff. He's going to be like one of their regular columnists, I guess you could call it. But they've also dropped the Natalie Petrovsky, who was doing cultural, sort of a cultural column for them. And they're moving their sports-oriented columnist in the mornings, Régent Tremblay. They're moving him from 8 o'clock to 7:10, because they think that there are more men listening in that earlier hour and more women listening at 8 o'clock. So, put the food in at 8 o'clock and the sports at 7:10. They're also going to be adding a new noontime 90-minute sort of news magazine type thing. With a new host, Régent Léveillé, who used to be at TVA on television. And interesting, if they've also signed up again, or sort of renewed, I guess, an agreement with Radio France International, so they'll be able to use all sorts of RFI reports and things. Gee, kind of like the way that 940 News uses CNN.
Yeah, I guess so.
We were speculating before that with this sort of more information and less sports might be sort of aimed at the competitions in Info 690.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think they're certainly paying attention to what's going on with those news stations. I think maybe not getting the numbers that they'd hope to, but I think they're definitely making an impact. So to see the fine tuning going on, I think there's going to be a very interesting ratings period coming up.
I'm sure.
I think there's so many things going on out there, and I think you're going to see a lot of fine tuning going on as they try to deal with the invasion of the border stations and sort of watching what the other guys are doing out there. So it should be fun times ahead, I would think. All right, 10 to the hour already. We'll take a short break here, get the business side of things taken care of, and come back with the rest of our program, so stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Marks of Radio Netherlands, and you're listening to the International Radio Report with Sheldon Harvey and Bill Westenhaver on CKUT.
And, of course, that's 90.7 on the FM. And for those of you out there on the World Wide Web, it's www.ckut.ca, live feed and real audio. Did you check it this morning, Sheldon?
Yep, it's up and
Okay. And archived, at least the previous week's feed is archived at members.fortunecity.com/crazyabout.radio, where you can also find written summaries of the show going back a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's now 10:50 in Montreal, 14:50 UTC, and there is a smog advisory in effect. You said you saw some smog when you were coming across the Champlain Bridge?
Yeah, kind of a gloomy-looking haze over the city. So if you have any respiratory problems or things like that, you may find it a little uncomfortable out there.
Yeah, it's going to be sunny with cloudy periods. Probably the clouds are partly the smog, at least, I would think. Warm with a high near 31. Winds southwesterly 15 to 30 kilometers an hour, and the ultraviolet index of 8 or high. Tonight, clear skies and a low near 19. For tomorrow, Monday, sunny early in the morning. Variable cloudiness later on, and warm with a high near 30.
All right, so summer hanging on in Montreal through the dog days of August. And although it was quite hot, the humidity level has not been as high. So
yeah, after we had that rain, Monday night and Tuesday, was it?
Yeah, a little more pleasant outside. So enjoy the weather if you're out there and roaming around the city. Okay, what else is going on out there in the wild world of radio these days?
Interesting things out of Winnipeg.
Lots of changes.
Lots of changes because the CRTC issued on August 8th a whole bunch of notices. They were taking applications for a whole whack of FM stations, and they actually approved 5 of them. So basically what's happening is Winnipeg is going to be getting 5 new FM stations. On 99.1, Global Communications, which is connected, of course, with Global Television and with the Aspers, are going to be doing a smooth jazz format station on 99.1. Rogers Broadcasting has gotten permission to move their AM station, CKY, which is one of the oldest ones in Winnipeg, the 3-letter call, to move that to FM to do classic rock. However, they had also applied for the 99.1 frequency, so that approval is sort of on hold until they find a new frequency. A company called CKVN Radio Link System Incorporated is going to be doing a nostalgia format from music from the 1920s to the 1970s on 100.7. HIS, or is it his? It's written in all caps, so Broadcasting Incorporated is doing contemporary Christian music aimed at the 12 to 24-year-olds on 107.1. Christian, that's why I'm not sure if it's HIS or his.
Oh, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
And Red River College Radio is going to be going on FM 92.9.
All right. So yeah, that's a major. You're gonna have to give your radio a real workout if you're in Edmonton, Winnipeg. Gee, I'm all over the map out there. Yeah, Winnipeg. CKY though is a surprise there. That's one of those, I guess, dare we use the word heritage stations?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, with a 50,000 watt clear channel, I guess. I think they're. What frequency were they on now? I remember spotting it.
I was going to look it up this morning before I came up. And
580.
580. Okay.
580. So, well, not necessarily a clear, but
CFRA Ottawa.
Yeah, but 50,000 watts in Winnipeg is going to get you out pretty far, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So that's another in the ongoing trend of AM switching to FM in Canada.
Yeah, particularly big one too.
Yeah, with one of the older stations.
There's a lot of reports on this because it's really in the newspapers because it's actually sort of CanWest Global's first move into the radio market, and they're talking about moving further into it. But interesting. There was a piece in Friday's Globe and Mail that. Mentioned that Izzy Asper, who's sort of the head of CanWest Global, had sent out an email referring to the station as a tax loss.
Yeah.
And was supposed to be sending it to the person who had written the press release which had been sent out. This was his reaction to the press release. Didn't realize he also sent it to everybody in the CanWest Global empire.
Yes, not learning the buttons on your email program, I guess.
I don't know what is the exact quote here from this piece.
Somewhat embarrassing.
Yes, he described the new license as, quote, a cunning and diabolically clever tax reduction plan given the expected losses because they aren't expecting the station to make money for quite a while. But Asper is a jazz fan himself.
Yeah, true.
He has a whole room in his house devoted to memorabilia from George and Ira Gershwin.
Okay. Well, I think he'll be out learning a crash course on email protocol. one of those flubs. The dangers of email. I've always said that about email. It's so quick, so easy to hit that reply button, and react instantaneously to something. We've seen a few people do that here in Montreal to a few pieces of mail. Which they probably regretted later on at some point in their life. But it's one of those dangers that I guess is quite easy, especially the reply and the reply all button. I know on the program I use are right beside each other, and a slight misclick of the mouse and you've sent something off to more people than you'd want to.
Beware.
Yeah, exactly.
And moving a little further out west in Vancouver, the testosterone-fueled Mojo radio format has gained a convert. Actually, it was last year. Late last year, 640 changed over.
Yeah.
No, it was like the spring of last year.
Yeah, it was early last year.
Yeah, it was before. It was before the end of May, I remember, April or something like that. Well, now the 730 station in Vancouver has gone Mojo. It looks like it's hard to tell. A lot of it looks syndicated, and a lot of it looks awfully boring.
If they're taking it from network and going to pick up some Toronto stuff maybe too, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
A few syndicated things from the States too. For example, Sunday evenings they're doing Matt Drudge for 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. People are, you're looking at the all sports station saying, hey, national doesn't work, and looking at putting more local in, and then you see the other hand, this sort of thing going on. So I don't know. Lots of consultants out there getting paid lots of big bucks to tell people what to do with their radio stations, and some of it works and some of it backfires pretty quickly on them. So a risky business out there for sure. Anyways, one thing we're going to have a lot more information for you on later on as it approaches, but CBC Radio and Television announced this week their plans for September the 11th. And they've certainly got a major undertaking afoot with, of course, the whole day dedicated to it. As we said, we'll give you a lot more details in the weeks ahead as we get closer to the event, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the different stations deal with this. As I've been saying for months, I'm waiting for somebody out there to do like a live instant replay in real time. Because I was away. Well, I wasn't away, but
you were in the office.
Yeah, I simply had a radio with me, and we listened on 940 News. But by the time I got home, a lot of what had taken place during that day, the networks, etc., deemed to be sort of too sensitive to show or to talk about again in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of kicking myself, like, gee, I mean, yes, it's a horrible event, and it it never should have happened, but it's probably the biggest news story that a lot of people will ever see in their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't there, and it just drives me around the bend that I didn't see it evolve. Thanks to you tipping us off to it, or we were sort of in a black box where we were, and had I not turned on a radio, we never would have got any of this,
mm-hmm.
except unless somebody called up. But yeah, that's kind of what I would like to see somebody do, and I'm hoping somebody says, yes, okay, it's sensitive, but put that little disclaimer up front. But
mm-hmm.
but look back at history and.
I bet you it's not going to happen. I have a feeling it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty powerful stuff to do it again, but
mm-hmm.
There is the sensitivity issue, obviously.
Oh, by the way, there's I listened to part of Peter Anthony Holder repeat actually from Wednesday night. It was a repeat only from several weeks ago during the World Cup at some point. I think it was around the beginning of the World Cup. He was talking to the editor of a book called We Interrupt This Broadcast, which is sort of a coffee table book about sort of big milestones in broadcasting events.
Oh, yeah.
Things like Pearl Harbor and the Hindenburg in September. And they put out a new edition updated to September 11th. And the book comes with 2 CDs.
Ooh, okay. Sirens in the background.
We're fairly close to the Royal Victoria Hospital, and it's probably an ambulance going up University Street to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting to see how this is dealt with. And as we said, CBC is taking a major undertaking on television and radio and internet as well,
mm-hmm.
across the board to cover the events, the anniversary. So we'll give you all the details of that as it gets closer, though.
Speaking of CBC, I want to squeeze in a few things that are happening today on CBC Radio 1, which is here in Montreal, is 88.5. At 1 o'clock, after the 1 o'clock news on the Summer Comedy Summary, they're doing a whole bunch of British stuff. Al, the host, welcomes Sean Cullen, the multi-talented comic and singer who talks about the influence of British comedy on his career. Sean takes pokes at James Bond villains, and they're also running one of my favorite Peter Cook sketches, the man who's debating whether to be a judge or a coal miner. And also Al's favorite comedy skit by a British duo. I don't know what that one is, but anyway, that's at 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock Tapestry sounds particularly interesting. A conversation with John Shelby Spong, an Anglican bishop. I think he's from Newark in New Jersey. And a radical Christian. Spong believes that September 11th was abundant proof that our traditional notion of, quote, a God who watches over us, unquote, is nothing but an illusion. So that's it. Tapestry after the 2 o'clock news. And then in the following hour, Writers and Company is doing not a writer per se, but a film director, Bernardo Bertolucci, who's done movies such as The Conformist, Last Tango in Paris, and the Oscar-winning The Last Emperor. So that's after the 3 o'clock news on Radio 1, 88.5. Okay, very good. We have reached the end of our show once again. Very quickly, the half hour goes by. We'd like to invite you to get in touch with us if you have any questions or comments about the show. The phone number here at the station, 514-398-6787. Number 1 into voicemail, and 2601 and the pound sign for our local. You can reach us, of course, by email, radioreport@yahoo.com, radioreport@yahoo.com. And if you missed the show, well, there's, as Bill mentioned to you, the website will give you the last episode in archived format and text versions of previous editions of the show. members.fortuncity.com/crazyabout-radio. And thanks to Ricky Leung for keeping that rolling along for us. Rolling in next is Len Dobbin. He has jazz for you for the next 2 hours on CKUT with Dobbin's Den. We thank you for joining us today, and we'll do it all again next Sunday morning at 10:30 on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Radio McGill. Bye-bye.